Let me invite the esteemed panel onto the stage. Okay, so we had Mr. Ajay Menon earlier talk about telcos becoming techcos, right? And it was in the Gartner Symposium of 2013, way back, right? That Senior Vice President of Research, Peter Sondergaard, said in his keynote address that every company is a technology company, right? He wasn't probably the first one to say it, and definitely he's not the last one to say it, right? And I did a simple Google search using this phrase, and there were about 1.68 billion results. So you can imagine this phrase has become ubiquitous, right? And it is evident from the rapid acceleration in digital technology, digital transformation in the last few years that we have seen. And now with the advent of 5G and edge computing, this is only going to further accelerate across industries and sectors. What it has also done is, it is also a catalyst for the telecom industry itself to get onto a digital transformation phase in itself, right? And that's where cloud comes into place. Changing into a cloud business model is key to achieving new businesses, bringing in cost efficiencies, and thereby being more agile. So today's panel discussion would focus on how cloud-based services are paving the way for the next generation operating models. The session will also discuss the level of adoption that the telcos have from a cloud standpoint, and whether they have really transitioned into cloud native. Okay, so let me start with the first question, and this is to you, Mr. Sethi, right? How does cloud computing enable telcos to think beyond connectivity and open realms of next generation business models, right? And the second part to this question is, how does it help in terms of generating new businesses? We talked about agility, we talked about cost efficiencies, and so on.
I think the question is quite relevant, especially as you mentioned, the timing, given where we are with respect to the launch of 5G in India. As operators look to deploy 5G, this represents a huge investment, both in terms of spectrum, in terms of CapEx, and I wonder, and I'm hoping, operators are also thinking about how they're going to monetize this investment. How are they going to change their operating model so they can get some return on this huge investment they would have to make? And this is in the context of where globally ARPUs are declining. Consumers are paying less. This is a global trend. Other markets in the world have launched 5G, and they're facing a declining consumer ARPU trend. So in that environment, how would you re-architect your operating model and create new revenue opportunities? The previous presenters, both Ajay and the other presenter, talked about this, that they would have to focus on deploying and be more agile, be more flexible, because the customers will not only represent consumers, but 5G will enable service providers to go deeper into enterprises, deeper into cloud gaming, because of the capabilities that 5G offers in terms of higher bandwidth, lower latency. They'll be able to offer services to various other enterprise sectors. So they'll be servicing hundreds of enterprises across multiple tens of verticals. Each of them will demand a different network slice with a different configuration, different quality of service. And the way you would monetize that is you would have to flexible to be able to deploy those services on the fly, build those configurations on the fly, modify those configurations as the businesses of your enterprise customers evolve. That is what cloud does for you. That is what cloud would do for the operators. The automation techniques that cloud has brings with it enable service providers to deploy these services, whether they're on-prem solutions or on public cloud, faster, configure them automatically, provide upgrades automatically, and be more responsive to the customer. So that, I think, that's the flexibility and agility piece of cloud that would help kind of re-architect the operating model. The other piece is cost effectiveness. the other aspect you mentioned. And this automation, this drives the cost-effective lower TCO over time as you're able to introduce software upgrades. You lower the operating cost of your across packet core to run all your network functions. So that's another sort of, as you build more, you benefit from all the automation, all the innovation that's happening in adjacent industries. You just bring those to your workloads in your network. So that's kind of translates to longer term savings on the TCO side as well.
All right. So essentially, flexibility, nimbleness in order to be faster from a time to market standpoint, right? And automation from an efficiencies. So, Mr. Shukla, coming from a platform side, right? Do you want to add anything on top of this?
Yeah, sure. I think first and foremost, great presentation by the two keynotes. I almost felt like I was presenting to myself, right? So the importance of cloud was pretty much laid right at the beginning. Now, coming from a perspective, I'm going to take a cue from what you started with from telco to techco. From my perspective, what I've seen, I think this journey for the operators, most of them globally, and I would say India is kind of leading the way. It started about 3 to 5 years back, right? And this started with the phenomena of what I would call personally is hybrid insourcing, right? We come from an era where that operators typically always believed in giving everything out, right, and just managing the network, right, at the end of the day. But everything else was kind of not looked upon, And now comes an era in the last 3 to 5 years where the operators are looking into the nuances and would like to be the architectural custodians of their cloud or their end-to-end design, right? Be it the hardware, be it the software, be it the application. They want to make the decision on their behalf, and they probably want someone to then go ahead and fulfill it, right? So this is a pivotal moment that has happened in the last 3 to 5 years. One classic example of that is network function virtualization, which just happened in 4G, right? We've got customers here on the panel, which are probably largest ones of that in APAC as geography, right? And they have completely taken over that journey and adopted, tried to disaggregate the entire stack to reap the benefits of not just cost, but also operational efficiencies, right? So they also realized in this journey that sometimes the sum of all may be lesser than all from one, right? So that is a learning that has happened. So I would say that the journey has started. Building this cloud now, with this foundation that is laid, I believe 5G presents an opportunity for them to move this learning from code towards the edge, closer to the consumers, right? And that's where the monetization is primarily going to give them the new stream of revenue. I would believe that, telcos have a bit of an advantage to start here. First and foremost, all the operators here have fundamentally strong enterprise businesses, so they are already in front of the customers, right? So probably they are providing bandwidth and connectivity, those kind of services. I guess what they need to do is, as one of the slides said, work on the people, process, and technology, try to reinvent themselves, and try and look to provide a wrapper on top, by virtue of which, they can probably be, I would call it a mini SI of sorts, and provide things as a service. Because if you look at any edge use case, TCO model, I would say that 60 to 70% of the entire TCO is going to come from the bandwidth, right? And everything else is going to be on top. So there's a huge flexibility that they can work as a system integrator, go to their customers, offer more value-added services, and reap benefits from that. What we're doing as Red Hat is, we're trying to make sure that we help them build a ubiquitous cloud to ensure that they're able to onboard a large ecosystem on the edge, because 5G is nothing about, if there is no ecosystem, there's no 5G. So as many as use cases and, these ISVs that can come on board, we can help them get that, right? So I believe that this is the path forward from telco to techco.
Thank you so much. I think it reverberates very well with what Manish was presenting as well, right? I think as telcos, we have evolved quite a bit from the 2G era to 4G, and we are in the almost cloud-ready status, right? And we need to take the next leap as we embark on the 5G journey to, leverage a lot more on cloud. And I think one of the keywords that you said was as a service, right? I think how do we become, telcos that provide as a service rather than, just becoming, sellers of products, as I would put it, right? That brings me to the next question, and this is to Mr. Savargaonkar. What are some of the trends that you're seeing from a telecom businesses and cloud computing, right, that you would like to see the telcos implement?
So let me take a step back and talk about what we talked about all cloud stuff here, right? Look at cloud as the tower for core. Fundamentally, what happened in tower business, it was an infrastructure which took all the multiple elements of 2G, 3G, 4G of multiple operators, put it on one single stack and made the infrastructure agile, efficient, and cost effective. Now, this is exactly what cloud is doing to all the software, be it the core software or be it your application software or whatever it is. So that is one fundamental value, and it allows you, so today in India, operators are able to deploy 1,000 sites, 100,000 sites, 1 lakh site in the duration of 1 year, fundamentally because there is a tower company who is providing the capability to scale up and do this. That's exactly what is the capability that the cloud layer will provide in terms of scalability and in terms of cost efficiency. So that's a given, that's the fundamental. But what we see that's happening in the market, so, and one of the slides that you must have seen which Manish presented, you saw verticalized clouds. That is exactly how all the operators and everybody has actually built up all the applications in a monolithic fashion, which is not using that particular efficiency. But the biggest application, apart from the scalability and efficiency that cloud brings in, is what we just heard being mentioned as a service business model. Now, why as a service business model is going to be important? The use cases that the enterprise want, nobody wants to invest money as far as enterprise is concerned. They want to get it as use case as a service. Now, use case as a service is to be delivered to the enterprise. Everything else which is falling at the back end has to be in the form of as a service. So if the infrastructure which is cloud is delivered as a service, the network functions sitting on top of the cloud are delivered as a service. The applications on top of that are delivered as a service. Only then the entire ecosystem, and everybody talked about the ecosystem has to come in place, the entire thing will be delivered use case as a service to the enterprise, and that is the business model which will prevail. And therefore it kind of becomes absolutely critical that unless until we have this foundation layers and everybody on one single business model, so apart from operating model, we need to have a business model transformation, which is what cloud brings into play. And to my mind, that's the biggest value that we get from what we are trying to do here.
Absolutely. That sounds so logical and so simple, right? So, let me come to you, Mr. Landgren. You've worked across markets globally, right? And while India is embarking on this journey, you've worked in markets where have already taken the plunge into 5G. So can you help us get a perspective of how things have performed over there from a 5G and cloud standpoint?
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to thank all of you for hanging in there this late Saturday evening. And I'd like to ask you a question first. So how many of you have a 5G phone? Raise your hand. I think there's a couple more that need some, but it's really impressive because so many of you have it already. Today is the kickoff, so we're going to switch on these networks. We've got an amazing panel here. We have Vodafone, we have Airtel, and we have Jio that are ready to switch on those networks. So it's really exciting time in India. And I must say, we are a little bit late in India. But given that you guys have the phones, given that everyone is aligned on the panel, the operators in launching 5G, it is going to be damn fast. And a bit what you mentioned, Abhishek, is that in India, the largest virtual networks are here. They were early on, and they are the biggest in the world. So there's a lot of experience. So it will go extremely fast in India. And that's why, in a way, the experience that has happened in the rest of the world is actually pretty good, because to quickly scale, which is what we will need to do here in India, it's really good to have that in the back, that some networks have already launched. So what I will touch upon in a few points is, in the networks that have launched, what has been not only the good, but what has been the challenges, because there has been challenges. So I'll start with the good. So the good is that when you horizontalize and you containerize the network, you can do wonderful things. And that's really the beauty of 5G, and that's why we're going into this world, because it becomes a platform. It becomes a platform of innovation. It's no longer a network which you just use for your broadband or fixed wireless access or something. It's a platform which you, as users, you in this room, can connect in, select and define your own services, but more importantly, industries can go in and connect. That's absolutely fantastic. And from an operations point of view, the fantastic thing is that these networks become self-driven. You have a CI/CD pipeline, you have software that gets downloaded to the network, and you can start to do operations and upgrades of the network in live operation, outside of maintenance windows. This is really, really good. And it's a huge difference compared to the VNF world when we go into the CNF world. But there are challenges, and we saw some of those challenges in the VNF world also, and that was that fault finding is actually a bit trickier. Now, where is the fault? Is it in the cloud? Is it in the hardware? Is it in the applications on top? And who is responsible? Because we've split the network into these. So it requires industry collaboration in a different way. So it needs that we really work together as partners in these new networks. That is a big journey. I forgot to touch upon one good thing, and that's also that TCO has really improved in horizontalizing networks, because then vendors like us, we fight for the different parts, and hopefully we give you guys in the operator community better value, which I think has been created in VNF. But it has come at a cost. It's come at a cost of this complexity. So that's an important aspect. The other aspect is, as you can expect, it's competence and making sure that you continue to stay in the forefront. Because now what's happening in operations and in the planning departments and any part of anyone that's going through this journey is that you will need to manage your legacy, you need to manage the VNFs, you need to manage the CNFs. So it's actually quite amount of technology, which also becomes much more horizontalized. So it is quite complex, but going back to what we talked about before, about experience in India, it is really the place where it will scale. And I bet you, even if India is late in launching 5G in a big way, it is going to be the absolute fastest market, where it will scale faster than any other market. So I'm super excited, and it's really cool that today is the first day of 5G. So pretty cool.
Thank you for those views. And it is really exciting to see how India adopts 5G and what we can do with it, right? So coming back to Mr. Khurana, right? What according to you are the most widely adopted models? So we hear about these IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, right, in the cloud world. So what according to you are the widely used models in the telecom industry?
Okay, so my view is that, first of all, it was music to my ears what you said, Ludvig, on problems that we face every day. Operating models are evolving, and I think 5G is the first technology where actually the operating models are evolving. Till date, what used to happen is that we make a network and we offer it to the consumer saying, use it now. And the consumer adapts an application on top of it saying, this is how I will use the connectivity. 5G is the first model where we say, no, we'll build a slice for you. We'll build a SaaS operating model for you. We'll give you a hybrid model on cloud and private networks. So this is the first technology where an operating model is changing. And I normally see this operating model shift in 3 segments. So I'm changing my operating model towards a consumer. A consumer no longer has to be fed what is ready-made available. It's not that I have something for you, you have to eat this. You can demand for a slice in 5G. You can demand for a service which is not based on on-prem, which could be a hyperscale plus on-prem. You can demand a service which is pay as you grow, as a couple of panelists said, a SaaS model is evolving. So in a consumer segment, you can demand, you can choose a service, you can devise a service. Second model is towards business. Now, 5G is not a technology that will be giving you millions of dollars from a consumer segment. Probably business, yes. So this is the first inclusive technology wherein a consumer, in industry, comes together saying that, okay, we'll give you what you need. A business today can always say that I have comfort of AWS or Google Cloud, while I want security of an on-prem cloud from Vodafone Idea or Airtel or Jio, and you can mix and match. So on the business front, you can demand I need to have 1 million more devices, and hence give me a GUI, which I can use to design my own charging parameters, my own policies, my own billing system, for example. So that's second domain. And third domain is internal to my operations, which is very important. Till date, I was bound by hardware given by Ericsson or Nokia or by Cisco or somebody else saying that this is my hardware, this is my software. Evolving to cloud, I have a single layer of hardware which I can agnostic, and we have actually used. I had a whole lot of application dying out its own life cycle. We took that hardware, gave it to one more partner saying reutilize this completely 100%. So towards internal operations, life cycle has become difficult. So as Ludvig said, CI/CD models. Today I have, we are a country with large operations. At least 250 million consumers that we have today. That means I have a large network. Now I cannot wait for my 500 network elements to be given 3 maintenance windows each for lifecycle management. So CI/CD model becomes extremely important. You bring in more frequent software upgrades, you bring them in non-maintenance window timeframes, choose a small operating section, load it, do a GitLab check, and roll out. So CI/CD pipeline, for example, lifecycle management. So these 3 operating models, I think, are important. So this is the first technology where an inclusive consumer B2B, B2C evolution is happening. So these 3 models, I think, if I'm right, I answered your question on evolving different models with 5G coming on, cloud coming in.
Yeah, thank you. I think, cloud offers the flexibility and the models are still evolving. Coming back to, so Mr. Kulkarni, right, you lead a large product development office within Jio, right? So wanted to ask you a question on what are some of the challenges that typically telcos face in terms of adoption of cloud technologies?
So I think there are 4 challenges that most of the telcos have undergone when they are shifting from telco to techco, especially around cloud. The first one is, over last 5 years, cloud has really shifted from IaaS to more PaaS and SaaS. Because of that, the older notion of I build large data centers or I build services around buying infrastructure has really shifted. Most of the enterprises have really adopted platform services, thanks to all the hyperscalers that are present in India. So anyone who is venturing into cloud or trying to build additional cloud capabilities will have to build full stack cloud capabilities. Just by building virtual machine or container capabilities is not going to be enough. They will have to build platform capabilities, they will have to build SaaS capabilities. That's going to be the challenge of number 1, because building infrastructure capability was easy, that we have been doing for last 15, 20 years. So that's number 1. Number 2, for delivering these 2 capabilities, the platform and SaaS capabilities, you need different type of people. So you will have to reskill your teams, because most of the conversations today that are happening in enterprise are around data. How do I unlock my value of data? How do you help me modernize my applications? Or in SMB or in consumers, as one of the panelists said, they don't really care which model. They are looking at what problem you are solving for me. So the SaaS or the industry clouds are going to be very, very important in the second layer. So building those capabilities, you will need to retrain, you will need to hire completely different type of people. So a lot of telecom organizations are going through that challenge. So they are shifting their culture, they're shifting their staffing or retraining their people. So that's the second big challenge. And in my opinion, the third that is going to happen, that we are seeing a lot cases where cloud is a complete different model from how you engage customer, how you market, all the way up to how do you bill. Most of the traditional telecom operating systems, whether they're OSS or BSS, they're not going to be equipped to handle cloud. Just look at agility that cloud requires. You might launch a service, a new service every week. You might actually change your billing plans almost on a weekly basis, responding to what market is or responding to your competition. Typically, telecom tariff plans have been very fixed. So all of that agility, or even the models that cloud brings, are going to be very, very different that current OSS BSS handles. So an incremental effort, or I augment my existing systems to fit cloud into it, are going to be not successful. So if a telecom operator is really committed to build cloud business, they will have to build ground up their OSS basis systems. It might be build a separate one. Some of them could actually carve out a smaller company just looking at that business, but that's going to be the real thing. And last, the clear trend that we are seeing is the conversation, as I said earlier, have moved to the industry clouds. While some of them could be SaaS-led, but even on the infrastructure or platform, most of the customers, and this is not only enterprise, but even the mid-market or smaller customers, are asking what is relevant for my industries. So the plain vanilla, I have a service, whether it is a telecom service or it is a cloud service, that works for everybody. I don't think that's the day. People are asking what is relevant to me, whether I am a small bank or a credit cooperative society, or I am a small manufacturing unit. The services need to be relevant for their businesses. So the industry cloud or industrialization capability is going to be the fourth one. Why these are going to be the things that telcos will need to do is because as telcos build more and more cloud capability, they will collaborate with a lot of hyperscalers, but at some point of time they will also compete. So if the hyperscalers and the software companies keep moving the needle into platform, into SaaS and into industries, the telecom providers will need to either partner with them or build these capabilities themselves.
Thank you so much. So as we talk about 5G, one of the most touted use cases are around IoT, around data, AI, right? So as we start seeing a large-scale adoption of these emerging technologies, it would require massive scale of infrastructure, data centers, and the supported processes, people to manage all of this, right? So this question is to you, Mr. Kumar. As a country, are we geared up for this?
Seems to be a tough question for me, because you have asked me to comment on the country's preparedness. So I will not comment on that, but what I will do, I will talk about how we are thinking from the Airtel perspective. The question is deep, so like what should I do? I should divide into two parts. One is, what is AI and IoT requirement from the infrastructure and data center perspective? And the second is, what is preparedness? AI is basically analytics for telecom companies. And IoT is around the use cases which takes care of remote healthcare, things like connected vehicles, autonomous vehicles, all those things. Now, to fulfill all these cases, I think latency is the key component, or the latency is the key requirement, and that can be solved only if we process data near to the device or near to the location where it is generating data. That happens through edge cloud. So what I'm trying to say, that edge is something which will help in solving the problem and use cases around AI and IoT. You might have recently seen announcement from Airtel that we are strongly moving in this direction by doing some collaboration also and exploring use cases like how it can be monetized. Now, if you talk about what it will do, we are trying to reduce the backhaul latency and ensuring that our data is not going to the data center. That will help me in two ways. One is it will reduce latency, which will help me in solving AI and IoT use cases. The second thing is it will ensure that my transport is light, and which will also help in creating lighter devices of whole ecosystem. Now, coming to the point where, what is the preparedness? So preparedness from Airtel perspective, most of the AI and IoT use cases are usually get fulfilled in around 20 to 30 millisecond of latency. Even today, as Airtel or operator, I think most of the operator are able to fulfill these kind of latency requirement. When we move into the use cases which require less than 5 milliseconds or less than 2 milliseconds, definitely we need to evolve our locations into our edge location or data center into edge locations. And that we can do easily. We can even go twice the number or thrice the number within a a minimal amount of time. That capability, I think, as a telecom operator, I can comment. Now, but there is a catch. Catch is even infrastructure is ready, the device should support those use cases in terms of putting the hardware, putting the chip into the devices that it will enable all those use cases for the consumer. So infrastructure wise, I think India is prepared, or operators are prepared. We need to see that when the whole ecosystem get evolved to fulfill or meet the requirement of these use cases. That's what I think about AI IoT adoption into in terms of data center and what is the preparedness.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. I think you've put it wonderfully well. The entire ecosystem needs to be ready, and that brings me to the next question. This is to you, Mr. Khurana. So in terms of moving to cloud, in terms of moving to 5G, what are the kind of partnerships that the telcos are looking at, and how is that entire model evolving?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. What kind of partnerships required to move to this ecosystem? Is it?
No, with Ericsson.
Stop selling, Ludvig. Stop selling. Okay, so
we have a sale going on right here on the stage. That's wonderful.
So this question is an organic growth happening or organic need of a revised ecosystem, right? As I said earlier, bundled hardware, bundled software, bundled application days are gone. We talked about SaaS model. I'll come to the question in a minute, but the SaaS model, pay-as-you-grow models, hyperscale model are becoming important and prevalent because there's an ecosystem which allows an open hardware, open cloud layer to be used by anybody. That's why the SaaS model is becoming important. Now coming to the question, I don't need to only go to Ericsson's or Nokia's and say, hey, give me this capacity today. I need to first choose my hardware layer, then I need to choose my hypervisor layer or a cloud layer, and then I need to choose my application. So partnership has evolved from a single touch point to multiple touch point already, right? So I need to, as Ludvig was also mentioning that, I need to find the fault somewhere. Who's at fault? I need to make three parties sit together, and that's a problem that we every day face. Probably Jio, Airtel also face the same issues. So secondly, which is very, very important, is the tools to manage this ecosystem now. If I have the same layer of cloud being used by 3 different partners with different flavors, I need to have a tool which can tell me how to do configuration management on each one of these. I cannot have people dedicated for one kind of cloud sitting there and say, hey, I'll do only Mavenir only on Red Hat, only on HP. Or I'll do Ericsson only on top of CEE or only on top of Dell. No. So I need to have a tool that can allow me configuration management, alarm management, a complete suite of FCAPs. Third thing is that with the growth of consumers, growth of applications, growth of the reach towards consumers, my size has become so much that network changes are happening a lot. And we don't do hundreds or thousands of changes in network. We do hundreds of thousands of changes in every month, every quarter. And hence this entire flow of managing this workflow is very important. So coming back to your question on what kind of partnerships, I need partnerships on giving agnostic hardware layer to me. I need partnerships on giving me open source platforms to me. I need partnerships from application providers. By the way, because application has purely become a software and they don't care about what underlying layer is, so much of openness, there's a whole lot of people who have come up with applications. Non-telco companies like Cisco's and Oracle's and Google's, who are non-telco, so to say, companies, have also come with their cloud native functions now. Everybody has come out. There are a lot of Indian companies who are working on cloud native functions. So third partnership there. Fourth partnership is on the tool side, for example. What is my whole 9 yards from design, deploy to operate day 2 services? So those extremely important. The tools. So these are the partnerships I think are important for us to take a long-term view to manage this.
Thank you for that. All right, so we have come to the end of the questions that I've had. I'll open it to the floor if there are any questions. Please.
Hello, sir. One question is there from hyperscalers, since nobody is representing them. So what I understand is that hyperscalers are managing their business of latency with the help of content delivery networks. And as far as the latency is concerned, which telecom operators are thinking whether they will be able to satisfy that requirement is not, that will be coming through the edge cloud. And that will not be a part of hyperscalers. That has to be with the telecom companies. So I mean, because we are shifting from internet to Internet of Things, because where a lot of things also requires the internet connectivity. So I don't think that this will be an easy transition. That is directly scalers can solve all the problems. So that will be a quite challenging in terms of latency. And latency sensitive applications like self-driving car and all those applications are the future. You know that the roads will be driverless, and they have to be providing the connectivity either through the beyond 5G, 6G or through the satellite spectrum. That we never know. So a lot of disruptions are happening. I don't know what will be the future. Maybe some of you can put a light on it. Thank you.
Thanks. So before joining Jio, I was with Microsoft, so I was part of the hyperscaler. That's why I thought I'll probably take a shot at addressing this. Your point is valid. Hyperscalers, not necessarily CDN, but they have various other ways as well to control latency. And it's actually kind of a good segue into the question that Charan asked last. So what you will see happening is hyperscaler will actually partner with telecom operators globally, because they will need edge solutions, right? So the edges that will get rolled out worldwide would essentially be two types of edges. One that would be built by somebody like a telecom operator, or there are system integrators who will build that. But you will also see hyperscalers partnering with telecom operators to build these edges. Because today, or last 10, 15 years, they moved computing from the distributed computing or on-premise to cloud, right? And now we are saying that the cloud will not only be centralized, but the cloud will be distributed in your data center and edge. So there is no way that a hyperscaler will not have a stake in that. So you will see those kind of partnerships emerging where the edges from hyperscalers would be also very, very well available. There are a lot of technologies that are already there. Both Microsoft and Google and Oracle, in fact, are working very well on the edges.
Okay, it looks like we all want to jump in on this question. So so good that you raised about hyperscalers. Maybe I could bring the perspective of what we see a bit outside of India in terms of that. So we have done, from Ericsson, deployments with all hyperscalers. So we do that. And most of the opcos that are going into 5G also work with hyperscalers for niche use cases. It is not for the mainstream of applications, because if you look at what we have deployed with hyperscalers so far, none of it is MBB. None of it is actually full live. But it is a super exciting catalyst to leverage for enterprise type use cases. So I think we will see that more in India as well. But for the mainstream MBB, I think it's still far off.
Just one thing which I want to add. So I think from operators' perspective, they are evaluating both threats. One is they are evaluating hyperscalers as well, that whether these marketplace services can be explored. And the second thing, they are already building CDN kind of a solution as well. to ensure that using this edge, using CDN, using another ISV application, these latency requirements can be met and the use cases can be fulfilled. So I think they're evaluating all the threats right now because use cases are evaluating, industry, like people are understanding use cases, they will build solution according to that and industry will adopt that. So it is an evolving phase, yes, and people are working on that. That's my.
All right.
While Jio responded, Airtel responded, I think it's my moral duty to respond as well. So first of all, I can talk on this for hours. Why is a hyperscale becoming so important now? And tell me how many core telco applications, as Ludvig was saying, are actually put on cloud? Zero. There's only one large operator, medium operator in North America who's put the telco workload on cloud. Otherwise, nobody. So see, we are a huge market. If you have to eat one roti, one chapati, one bread, you'll rather buy it from the market. But if you have a family of 20,000 people and you have to have 20,000 breads, you'd rather make it at home, right? So I would, if I have 250 million consumers or 400 million consumers, I would rather design my own center, right? I will not go to them. But it's important from a enterprise segment point of view, because there you don't need to go and spend money today. The latency required, security required is there given by them. Second point on edge compute, I have very strong views on edge compute. Now, with all due respect to our partners, Google and Amazon and Microsoft, how many locations do they have? I'll probably have 10 times more locations, right? So who's more capable of giving edge? Connectivity I own, locations I own, data centers I own. So why would I go to them? So I'm not saying we will not go to them. We also are evaluating models on hybrid or pure hyperscale models, but that's being purely driven from an enterprise segment coming into telco space, right? Your question on low latency applications. Now, low latency, if I need to give a low latency to a small medium enterprise in Bangalore, I would rather put a small data center there, no? I'll put one cabinet with servers and computes and serve there. So latency, connectivity, security is best understood by probably telco. But these models will evolve because you need to have enterprise segment coming in, you need to evolve models on pay as you grow, you need to have redundancy examples, for example. So it'll seep in. But I think it's a little too early to say, and especially with volumes that we have in India. I think it's going to take some time.
So words of wisdom coming there from Mr. Khurana. I'm sure you can talk for hours on this subject. We don't have hours. We're on the top of the hour, and probably we can squeeze in one more question.
Yeah, I think it was touched upon by everyone here. The challenge is that to make these networks work, both if it's just simple MBB or if it is enterprise services, we're involving a lot of parties. So as mentioned here, we need tools, we need to work together and not beat each other up. We will do that anyway, but it's a different type of collaboration, because when we commit, then we need to collaborate. And what will happen, as with hyperscalers we mentioned here, they're a new party in the mix, and we will see hybrid models. So even if the early enterprise POCs and see what comes out of it, there are also very cool use cases that were being looked at from a hybrid point of view, like disaster recovery, like emergency capacity, and to use a hyperscaler for that. So it's really brand new models that we see as we're going into 5G. So the opportunity is great, but the challenge is that it's many parties. That's really it.
If I may just want to add there. So one of the complexities again is going to be, today we know the umbrella use cases for edge, right? We only know what it can fulfill, but we don't know who's going to provide that. There could be anybody who could be, it could be a small shop of 5 people who come up with a fantastic use case, or it could be any of us sitting on the panel. Now, how do you ensure that all these applications are portable on the edge, are ubiquitous on the edge? Who manages the life cycle of that, the upgrades, updates? Who, like Gulshan rightfully mentioned, who takes the ownership, right? So it's this consortium who needs to come together and decide how do we best serve our customers, right? It has to be with an open mind. It has to be with probably an open platform. Open source is fundamentally going to be very pivotal, to this entire journey, because it kind of reduces the entry barrier for all these new age ISVs to come in and develop applications. So I believe that's one of the things that can add.
Thank you.
Mike,
One last question.
Quick one. You mentioned about horizontal clouds and the challenge in the operations piece of it in terms of ownership, I think, from Ericsson. So we have vertical clouds and then we have horizontal clouds where we have multiple workloads. And operations and in terms of ownership, there is an issue you highlighted. Any thoughts on how that, how that cat can be built, let's say? Yes. So that's one.
What will happen, of course, is in the early deployments, we will see that there's a lot of full stack deployments for 5G core, simply because it's an easy route and it's a fast time to market. So we will see a bit more of that. I do, however, believe that the model is the partnership model. It's horizontalization across. It is partnerships and co-opetition in a very big way. So it will be moving that very quickly, and I would say in India in particular.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, folks, for patiently waiting and hearing to the panel. I'm sure you've had an interesting session. And today's Saturday night, so I'm sure you have better things to do after this. So thank you very much, and thank you.